that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone.
Welcome to another episode of Tough Talk Tuesday, presented by Heavy Bag Boxing. We don't pull any punches. My name is Lucas Biggers. Alongside me will be Sakura A. and Robert A. Robert Alexander. What's going on, guys?
What's up?
At some point, Javi will join us. Fashionably late like he always does. All right, guys, let's just jump right into it. Joyce versus Takam. I want your take on it, Rob. How was the stoppage? A lot of people saying it was stopped too early. What was your things?
Well, first of all, let me just say that I thought it was a very good test for Joyce. Very good test. Takam came to fight. He had him. He had him pretty good in the early rounds. He had him hurt a bit. He had Joyce hurt even a little bit, but Joyce took it. Joyce took some tough shots from Takam there, and we all know Takam is pretty much a veteran in terms of him and Joyce. He's a veteran in the ring. So Takam wasn't playing around. He came to fight. That being said, Joyce weathered the storm, and he did what he was supposed to do. He got the technical knockout. Now, people claim that it was stopped early and this and that. I felt like the guy was knocked out on his feet. I thought it was a good stoppage. I thought Takam didn't want no more, and if he did, he would have got hurt.
I mean, I agree and disagree, Rob. I don't think he was out on his feet, but I do think he was taking way too much punishment, and he was not responding at all. I think he landed maybe 3 that whole round. Otherwise, he was just getting, pummeled. And what do they expect to happen? I mean, he's a veteran enough. He knows to either, take a knee, hold something. He knew it was coming. I mean, to act surprised, just it shocks me. You know better than that.
I think he was hurt badly. I mean, despite of all that boo-hooing and everything that he put on because he lost the fight. Period. I think he was hurt. And not only that, he was hurt badly. And like you said, the lack of defense and even throwing punches back, that proves it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see, anybody else saying it was a bad stoppage. I mean, I don't think he was knocked out on his feet, not that bad as you do, but, I mean, he should have known that it was coming regardless. Other than that, it was kind of dead this weekend. I mean, any other fights that you guys want to touch on? It's been pretty shallow this weekend.
Well, I want to talk about Joe Joyce now.
Okay, let's talk about Joe Joyce.
Because I want to throw him in the heavyweight mix. I think that very good... I want to throw him in the mix.
Okay.
I think that a very good fight for him next would be F.A. I want to see him versus a guy like F.A. And see what can happen with them two, because they're both big time prospects, but they both got the knockout power and the knockout ability, and they both got big holes to fill. I think it would be a good test for both of them. Now, Joyce wants to call out the winner, Usyk and Joshua. I think, Lucas, we all can agree he's not ready for that yet. But I would love to see him in a contention with a guy like F.A. to build on that.
I mean, that's 2 top fighters. You trying to go against Usyk or Joshua is probably a bad idea. I would agree with you, Rob. I think he does need to fight like an F.A. first, or hell, maybe even a Andy Ruiz. Why not? Build it up. But yeah, I don't think he can just be calling out those names. A win over Takam does not grant a title shot to me. So in my eyes, he can't be demanding shit from this win. It's a good win, especially from people, somebody that's not here today.
I mean,
him
but
to win.
But the other issue is he's now the number 1 mandatory challenger.
And that's bad ranking system. That's a bad ranking system. No offense to Joe Joyce. I mean, he's a great fighter. But should he really be ranked number 1, guys? In any sanctioning body?
Well, right. I mean, first of all, I'm glad Joe Joyce made it through that particular fight. Him and Dubois had their fight together, and we don't know exactly how that would have ended had it not been for the eye injury. So now we got a second chance to view him with someone like Takam, which, fought Anthony Joshua before. And he did come to fight. And he did apparently think that he had a chance of winning. With that performance, I would say that he does need a couple of more fights, at least one or two, before calling out any of the big top three. But I don't think he should be number one ranked. No, because you got people sitting out there like a Dillian White, and you got people sitting out there like Ortiz, Ruiz, Fa, as you mentioned before. I mean, these are all people that I think have fought tougher competition than he has and won some of their fights. Well, most of their fights. So how can we, put him as a number one contender?
Especially if you're talking about Dillian White. I mean, how many times was that dude pushed to the bottom of the barrel again? I feel for him,
Yeah, that's true. Boxing don't, some people don't fare as well in boxing as far as, the politics go. So they have to scruff and fight for every little accomplishment. So it's kind of a slap in the face to someone like him for, Joe Joyce to win this Takam fight and be put as number one. But as you said, we know how these ranking systems are. And I just think that there are other people on the list that, deserve a little bit more of that standing. But overall, he's a good boxer.
For sure. All right. Yeah, I mean, Joe Joyce is somebody that cannot be calling people out. But leading into other heavyweight topics here, Gerald Washington had to withdraw from his fight with Michael Coffey due to COVID-19. Now he's going to face Jonathan Rice. Guys, I mean, does this just kill that card for you?
Well, first of all, it was already a dead card. I hate to say that.
Well, I mean, that's why. I mean, was that like the nail in the coffin?
And that was the final. It was already a dead card to me, and that definitely would be the final straw. But I mean, I know Shakura likes Kofi, so I'll let her speak on that because she can give us more insight on that prospect.
Right, and before Sakura takes it, I just want to say, no disrespect to anybody on that card. It's just there is not a lot of mainstream pull with their no fans there. Basically, not a big fan base whatsoever, as far as I'm aware of. Sakura, go ahead.
I mean, I was actually looking forward to Coffey being able to step up to a different level with Washington, being that he had fought some of the higher competition. So we could see, comparatively how he did against someone like Washington. But so it's unfortunate for him that he's not going to be able to showcase his talent and get a name like Washington on his record. But I'm surprised you guys are not talking about this. But I mean, I'm having a hard time believing this dude had COVID. This is starting to get a trend where now you're like, okay, why aren't people taking preparations when it comes to, trying to keep their camps clean of, COVID? Like, I mean, and you waited very late in the game to test. I mean, they're testing very late before the actual, prior to the fight, so that there's less time for you to bring in a viable competition, and there's less, chance of you being able to, still put on a competitive fight. And that's what's so annoying about it. It's like, what can they do differently if you're testing 2 weeks out, for COVID before the fight? I mean, but this is a couple of fights in now that we've had these last minute changes due to COVID. And, last weekend we had a dead weekend because of Fury and Wilder's fight being canceled. And it's just becoming suspect. Like, was Washington not prepared to fight Coffey? Did he finally work his way around, seeing some footage on Coffey and realizing, like, hey, this guy might be too much for me? You just never know now. It's like you can't trust the findings or the testing that's being done because it's like, okay, he's saying he has COVID now, and now we get thrown this, this opponent. And I don't know if you might not know Coffee's background, but I mean, he's been working at his career for quite a while now. And because he had military background, he wasn't able to start his professional career as early as he would have liked. So he doesn't have time to waste on people popping on COVID tests for him to get to his next level. So it's really a shame that happened. Now, Anthony Durrell is also on the card, so I was looking forward to that as well. Just because his last fight, I think, ended up being a draw. I'm kind of remembering it. But he's still somebody that I enjoy watching. But with this replacement, and it's Jonathan Rice, you said? It's not really a name that that I know. But at the same time, I try not to judge people that we just don't, it's not popular as to whether or not they would be competitive or not. It's just the fact that we know, he ain't had time to prepare for this fight. Mm-hmm. We know that for sure. So it can't be as competitive as it was supposed to be. We already know that. So that's just what makes it very frustrating.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I mean, it's something that's turned into kind of like a new, like, price yourself out. Like, oh, I got COVID. Sorry. We have to push that back or just cancel it, It's nobody seemed to be worried about the health of, anybody. It's just like, oh, you got COVID, you'll be all right. We'll just push that back. Nobody thinks it's like that serious anymore. And, it should be. But that kind of leads in also, before we get too far into that COVID situation, your tweet of the week, Sakura. It does kind of feed into that. So might as well talk on that now.
All right. So, just speaking on the fact that, COVID is starting to take over some of our fight plans and leaving us with dead weekends, I was very upset with the Wilder and Fury fight being canceled.
I think everybody was. I mean, that was something I was looking forward to for sure. And there's so much beef and animosity there that you just want to see it ended, or at least, exacerbated, one of the two.
No, it's not canceled now. It was postponed. They got a new date.
Canceled for now.
We still had a damn
they got a new date.
No boxing because of it. All right. Let's put it like that. So we got Michael Benson tweeting. He says, Bob Arum on COVID outbreak in Tyson Fury's camp. I really screamed at all of them. It was a complete fuck up. There was no precautions taken. A lot of it was our fault. They, the Wilder team, did the right thing. They're to be commended. We didn't. And that's from World Boxing News. So, what are we saying here? I mean, he's admitting that precautions were not taken properly in order to secure this fight in the right way. If it is due to COVID, and by so many people in the team having it, apparently, I mean, that's like a red alarm that, yeah, we know you didn't take precautions properly. Too many of y'all had it. So, I mean, is this the right thing to say? Does Bob Arum have a point? We didn't do the right thing? Being that so many people were looking forward to that fight.
Yeah. I mean, and he should get some kudos points or brownies points, whatever you want to call it, for admitting that, his fighter's camp was in the wrong. I mean, a lot of people want to think, Bob Arum's a jerk and, kind of an asshole and always the cause of fights not happening. I don't think that's the case. But, I mean, he literally places the blame on Tyson Fury. And rightfully so. Most promoters are going to back their fighter and be like, no, it's a fluke. It just happens. You can't get mad at these things. But no, Bob Arum placed it firmly with Fury. And like I said, rightfully so. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because, look, you have to give him the right to promote the fight. And I think that's part of the issue. Now, I asked this question on air or off air because I don't know if it was played, but I asked this question a couple of weeks ago about these COVID situations because they are happening, Shakira, more often. And everything that's coming up is the situation with precaution. However, Tyson Fury, I'm gonna cut a little slack to, guys, because he's out there promoting this fight. He's out there, and the camp is with him every step of the way because he always is with his camp, and that camp promotes his fights heavily. They do it heavily. He was at the national championship game promoting his last fight with Deontay Wilder. So weeks ago, I think about these part of COVID situations with the precautions they are happening. But Shakira, even that somewhat can't always be on the fighter because they need to be able to or be allowed to promote the fight. Now, if you take the precautions like you're supposed to be doing, that's not going to be allowed. These press conferences everywhere, these world tours, so to speak, everywhere. It shouldn't be allowed. So part of that, not all of that falls on Tyson Fury. That they're not taking precautions for that anywhere. Now, with that being said, it's the shit that I see in regards to Teofimo Lopez's case, to where he has a positive test, his fight gets postponed, and a week or two later, he's in Italy on vacation with his wife. Right. So that's the stuff that gets me mad, is when you have a guy doing stuff like that and not promoting the fight, not even doing anything, being anywhere near a boxing ring at the time. He's on vacation, and he was supposed to be fighting the week before.
I mean, Fury had an outing too, they say. They call him out. I mean, you're right as far as no one is, I can't say no one, but apparently he feels that Wilder's camp took precautions. But I guess the overall theme in the U.S. right now is people aren't taking precautions anymore. But all Americans don't have millions of dollars and millions of fans participating in a fight on a specific date. And let's think about people that actually were getting ready to travel to the United States and across country to attend this fight, and the money they're out of as well. Because I'm going to tell you right quick, like, I almost decided to go to that fight. Goodness gracious, I'm so glad that I backed off of it, because I would have been pissed off for real, not just at going to the fight. I was still pissed off last weekend just sitting here when I needed my boxing fix, okay? I needed that happy place for a few hours. So I was already pissed off when there wasn't anything. So just imagine if I'd have been one of those people that actually paid and got vacations and things like that, time off work to go to this. So it's like they have to start doing something. They have to, especially with these mega fights. Like, you can't wait until 2 weeks. Like, even with the coffee situation, the testing is it not far enough out? Should they be testing more often for COVID leading into the fight? Like, they have to start. When I say they, I mean the promoters, and the management teams should be, putting some other precautions in place at this point.
I mean, now, are they not doing the bubble no more? Can we go back to the bubble?
They have not been doing the bubble.
The bubble was mostly successful. Like,
that's true.
Let's go back to the bubble.
Well, and then there's other things that you can speak on about it too. Namely, look at what the NFL is doing right now. The NFL says you have to get vaccinated or we're fining your ass. And if it leads to postponing games to where we got to take games away from you, you'll forfeit those games if you can't make them up. So kudos to the NFL. The same thing needs to happen here, and somebody needs to, the commissions, somebody needs to step in and take responsibility and start finding these people and hitting their pocketbooks. Otherwise, they're not going to care.
I mean,
That being
go ahead.
That being said, I do have to touch. There is a new date. It is October the 9th that has been agreed upon. So it's not. I just want our fans to know it's not like we're not getting this fight. We are
getting to that date anyway. Like, why is it got to be that far out in advance? Now, I realize there's certain weekends where we've already got boxing scheduled, but damn, October? Like, if it's just COVID, you really only needed those 14 days.
Well, you got Spence and Pacquiao in August. You got Canelo, of course, back in September. They wanted their own.
Don't know that yet.
They wanted their own date. So that was the plan. Go ahead, Lucas. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was basically just gonna say, like, it needs to be the same way with these drug testing. You know, we're talking about COVID testing and them not doing that right, but shit, they ain't been doing just random drug testing like they're supposed to be doing. So all these testing ain't right, and it's a matter of who is at fault. You know, the fighters themselves are the ones that end up paying for themselves to get tested. So it's really, if anybody calls you and tells you, you know, you test positive for anything, that's on you, because you actually are the ones who pay for that. Now, yeah, you may pay for a VADA test or whatever, but if you're not willing to, then you can always downgrade to the USADA tests or whatever and just do the urine. But most of us know that don't prove shit. That don't prove you ain't on nothing.
Yeah, that's pretty true. I mean, it doesn't prove anything. And the problem is that, you know, when the promoters start paying for these VADA testing, and then now, even though you're VADA and you're supposed to be an organization working solely for yourself, you seem to be more beholden to the promoter because you don't want to be out of that kind of money. I mean, it's just what you call a conflict of interest. You know what I'm saying? Like, when the main person that's paying for these tests can be the person that withdraws all of their money from you, it seems to me that VADA's in a quagmire right now where they're like, damn, well, you know, like, we're supposed to be stringent and do the testing the way we suppose, you know, that it should be done. And we want to be held to higher standards so that people know that when we say somebody did something wrong or tested positive for something illegal, that it's the right move. Or when vice versa, when we say someone is clean, they really clean. But then you're beholden to the promotional companies and things like that are paying you. I mean, it's a conflict of interest, and the only way that's going to be resolved fully is if it starts being government funded. I mean, I don't see any other way that it could be not government funded, because what are we, the fans, supposed to pay nonprofit, you know, like a nonprofit donation to this company to make sure that this is done with impunity? Like,
well, yeah, because as a promoter, if you putting out money and your fighter comes up dirty, you're not supposed to pull the money out of the testing. You're supposed to pull the money out of the fighter. Okay.
Right, but then that's the way it should be. But we're not actually sure because tests are missed, right? Like, sometimes you get the
or not even done.
Yeah, like they're not missing. They're missing from where they're even supposed to do to even get the testing. And then who are you gonna call? You're gonna call the promoter and be like, "Hey, you missed this testing," and they're like, "Okay," because they really know why they missed the testing. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just too much. It's too much reliant on what they can do, or the promoter doesn't want to miss out on money that they've scheduled for all this stuff. So if you tell them that boxer really didn't test, you know, hopped on a test or what have you, now it's like, damn, I can't keep paying this money for me to lose money. So, you know, I just don't think that's the proper way for that organization to be paid.
And the WBC clean boxing program, I mean, it has a good idea, I guess, but it fails in every aspect because, I mean, it seems like they start testing like maybe 2 weeks before the fight. They done already cycled off of it. You know, it's out of their system by then. you have to be testing, and I would say WBC to be efficient with this, anybody in the top 15 has to be 24/7 drug testing. If Don Air can afford it, I don't see why the WBC can't. They damn sure can. They just don't want to. Okay? And that is literally the only person that I believe is clean, because that's the only person that's proven it. If you're getting 24/7 tested, where it's random, you don't even have a fight coming up, nothing even penciled in, and you could get tested, and you have not popped on a test, then I believe you're clean. Everybody else, to me, is still suspect, because of the way testing occurs and the way it is done. The whole boxing world and everything about who pays for the test is idiotic. I mean, none of it makes sense. Rob, any other ideas for maybe improving this?
Well, again, I was thinking about, certain aspects and certain things, and really, I just think, to be honest, we've come to a point where we need to tighten up the sport in the discussion. We need to tighten it up. We need to have rules and regulations on place to where it is tightened up. I don't think it should be the promoters, putting in money to the testing for their fighters, and then they just are able or allotted to pull out money from the testing because their fighter tested positive. I think there needs to be rules in place for that. So your fighter tests positive, it's on the promotion. The promoter takes the hit, and then in turn, they're not allowed to pull money out of the testing pro. I think it should be mandatory. Therefore, the only way that they're going to recoup that money, or period, the only way they're going to recoup that money is off the fighter, which is where it should be. So I think that the commission has to step in and make it mandatory. I do agree that the promoter should pay, not the fighters. I think the promoter should pay, because then there's accountability level that has to take place. Because if it's mandatory and they cannot pull that money out of there, it's mandatory for them to pay that, and their fighter does test positive, then they're going to want to recoup. And the only way they're going to want to recoup is to take it out of the fighter. And that's how that should trickle down, and that's how that should work.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, but it seems like we are backtracking. I agree with things need to change, but if anything, it's getting it to allow it more, just like we saw with the WBC, allowing more of like the clenbuterol to be shown. We're going in reverse, not improving. We're getting worse. We're degrading. And I see what you're saying as far as like them paying too, but unfortunately, I think what we would see is them just not testing at all, because what
if it's that's why I said,
I mean, you want Bob Arum, following Manny Pacquiao around, making sure he's not eating no Mexican meat. I mean, what are you gonna do?
No, you don't get that, but that's why I said it should be mandatory. But again, we need to tighten up the sport. The commissions have to step in and tighten up the sport. It needs to be ran like a corporation, like the NFL, like the NBA. We need that in boxing, period. And going back on point, it just like these vaccination issues and the issues with COVID. They're not taking any precautions, and there's no consequences, period. There's no consequences for these fights getting canceled, getting postponed, getting missed. And let's put it, the fights that are getting canceled this year are the big ones. The ones that are getting postponed this year are the big ones, are the title fights for Teofimo Lopez, are the title defense, the championship bout with Wilder and Fury for the trilogy. Those are the big fights, and they're getting postponed due to COVID. So you have to tighten it up. You have to put these precautions on them. You need to start taking money out, because that's what this sport is fueled upon. People act like it's fueled upon different. No, it's fueled upon money.
It is, and that's why the testing isn't getting done. Is these tests, what they say, are expensive for at least from what they say. Now, I've tried to get answers from Vada directly. How much does a test cost? And he's like, well, it depends, like what we're testing for here. And I'm like,
here we go.
yeah, it's just a runaround. So it's like, you're not even going to give me a straight answer. It's all hoopla, man, I swear. And, people like the Canelos and Mayweather and Pacquiao and Spence and anybody that's a household name as far as boxing is concerned, in my eyes, should be embarrassed. They should all be 24/7 tested. That proves you're innocent. That says, hey, I'm good. If you are not doing this, then you can't complain about anybody saying that you might be juicing, because it's all suspect. You're not proving us anything. Canelo had to be talked into it after the clenbuterol thing. He was not being tested by the WBC CBP program, and he refused to be a part of the CBP program until he had the negative response from, or the positive response from the Golovkin fight. And then, oh yeah, now I'll be a part of the Well, why did it take that? Why did it take that? And, we're seeing this across the board, and there's no one willing to stand up and do it except for Nonito Donaire. Why is that, guys? Why is no one willing to? Are we just assuming that everybody's juicing right now? Because that's the only place my mind keeps going to, is because there is no responsibility, even to prove, to the rest of your fan base that you're innocent.
Again, though, it comes with the mandatory thing. They don't have to do it. So if I don't have to do something that, can make my life harder, so to speak, which we're talking about, like you said, the money. Donaire does it because he is a man, and he's proven this, and he is a man of strong morals. He's a man of strong character. He wants the world to know he doesn't take drugs at all. He lives a healthy lifestyle. He doesn't care. He'll shout it from the rooftops, the mountaintops. But he knows the only way to consistently prove that is to invest in the testing. And he's set up himself with multiple faucets in the sport. So he has the income to be able to do it. He does. He has the income to be able to do it, to prove that. So that's why he does it. I'm not going to sit here and say all these other fighters are juicing. No, they're not all juicing. I'm not going to say that. It hasn't been proven. But they don't have to prove it. So why do it?
Yeah,
you do it to have that, though. You have that. You know what I mean? Like, right now, Donaire has bragging rights because he's knocking people out, and he's doing it clean. We can't speak upon other people.
But that's the reason, because I can sit here and say I don't do drugs at all of any kind. So I know I'm clean, and people who know me and are around me should know that too. And I don't need no damn test to prove it to y'all. Yeah. I don't have to take a test to be on this podcast. I don't have to take a test to be to work my 9 to 5 every day and prove that I'm drug free.
I got to prove I'm COVID free. The problem is you should be required, and that's where you guys are saying and leaning into it. I agree, but like I said, they should be to that point where everybody already is contemplating and questioning them anyway. Manny Pacquiao, for instance. Let's use Manny, okay? Especially with this build-up to the Errol Spence fight and the VADA testing not getting started in a timely manner, okay? It got started, apparently, and that's still according to Manny Pacquiao. I don't know if we've heard from VADA directly. Still. So, we get to this point, and then you have all these questions like, why was this not started, when it could be easily resolved, just like his fellow Filipino fighter here, and fellow champ, Nonito Donaire. Why can he not follow the same thing?
And he got more money than Donaire.
Exactly. So does Mayweather. Those people, the ones at the top of the sport, and have stayed at the top, I'm talking about the top fan bases in boxing, don't do 24/7. Nobody does it, except Nonito Donaire.
Well, that's what I'm saying about Nonito. It's like he can do that because he knows he has right, natural power. And he has natural endurance and stuff. So, some people are in as far as athletes are concerned, are going to look at it like, well, sure, he's going to do, year-round body testing. He got, the natural power and the natural skill, so they're looking at it as, he's doing it because he doesn't need to use anything. But if you're an athlete, as far as COVID is concerned too, there's a lot of times where you feel like you're invincible. You feel like you don't have to take the vaccine and you don't have to be, necessarily precautious because you feel like you're in great health and you don't really believe that, you're going to really get it or that you'll really get sick. I mean, I'm witnessing that every day here in Florida where, athletes are just, doing whatever they want to do. And, it's the same thing with the body testing almost. It's like they're used to doing whatever they want to do. And like Rob is saying, like, it's not required from the boxing commission. I mean, the boxing commission nationally is meeting in a convention in Orlando this week. So we can, you could ask someone over there, like, hey, how, can you guys toughen up on body testing or whatever? But the reality is that these states are now like competing for major fights. They want these larger promoters to come to their states, and they look at it as an opportunity to break through that barrier that only's been reserved for New York and the boardwalk and these hubs like Vegas and California. They want to be a part of that. They want some of these major fights in their city. So in their state. So who's gonna, have the balls in the boxing commissioner's office to be like, well, if you want to come to our state, you need to be body tested. So we're running into money issues again. Mm-hmm. So there's no way of circling around to get some restrictions or some requirements.
I mean, just to put it in perspective, what Lucas is talking about, Donaire himself just lost the fight because his opponent refused to take to test. So he just lost the fight. Guess what? His opponent is now booked with a bout with Rigan Diao.
Right.
So why Donaire does not have an opponent any longer because his opponent chose not to test, he doesn't have a fight anymore, and his opponent has something on the books.
And to take it a step further, like you guys said, the commission should be held and promoters responsible, but it should be the same as a failed drug test. I mean, if you look at some, it's a slap on the wrist, like the Canelo versus Golovkin thing. That was a slap on the wrist because he ended up only being suspended like 3 months because that's when he tested positive, 7-8 months beforehand. So, it's a slap on the wrist. If you decline to take a test, especially a VADA test, blood test, something other than just the USDA test, which is just the urine, if you take any of the blood tests or decline to, and that's why the fight falls apart, the commission should automatically assume that you test positive. They should treat it as testing positive.
So you mean like an automatic suspension?
Yes, automatic suspension, a set amount. And if you ask me, Big Baby Miller, 2 years, that's not enough. That's not enough. How many failed drug tests has Big Baby Miller had? Get rid of him. Make an example. You're banned from life. Okay? We got to clean it up, and it's not changing anything. So because everybody just keeps getting this, oh, you're okay. You'll be back. There's no repercussions to anything, so everybody's just going to keep doing it. All right. Now, we did touch on Canelo. Rob, from what I'm hearing, the Canelo fight, their talks are off between him and Caleb Plant. You want to speak on that?
And this is reliable source, ESPN. Canelo Alvarez, Caleb Plant fight talks break off over disagreements in contract. Guys, I'm going to go on a limb on this one. It does not say, because of course they can't speak on it or probably don't have, true factual information on it. But I'm going to go on a limb here and say I think Caleb Plant is freaking. I think Caleb Plant is cashing himself out of this fight again.
Oh, they said it
Now,
was for money?
over contract disagreements. So it's a disagreement in the contracts, aka money.
Come on now. We all know that Canelo is also the new Mayweather, right? So he may be trying to put him in like an 8-foot ring. You can't move. I'm just going to beat the shit out of you. I mean, he's trying to manipulate all the contracts to fit him. And you know he's probably trying to undercut him on pay. And Caleb Plant's smart. He's been taking his career very well. And I think he's setting it up to not necessarily cash himself out, but at least make the money worth it for Canelo to come get his belt.
So this is a quote.
I'm not assuming that it's money. I'm thinking more like towards what Lucas is saying, where Canelo wants those advantages that make it where you're not fighting an equal fight. And I think Caleb Plant is smart enough to be like, hell no, I'm not doing that shit.
Exactly.
You want to fight me? We're going to fight fair. I wanted my fair time to get in training, to have a nice training camp, number one. So you didn't get me in December. And now you probably want to play these tricks where, you can't be over, 10 or 9 pounds the day of the fight, or or whatever else he wants to create for that day, including the ring scenario that Billy Joe Saunders had to go through. So I think that's where the standoff is at, because I think if it was money, they would have said money.
Okay, I should have read deeper. I apologize, y'all. I should have read deeper. Now, of course, this is speculation because these are quotes. According to Plant, his bark is bigger than his bite. Canelo was offered the highest guaranteed of his career. He was offered to make $40 million plus Mexican TV rights, plus Hennessy sponsorship.
$40 million.
But then he wanted an upside in the gate and pay-per-view revenue.
Canelo priced himself out. Hold
on. And Plant said we agreed to that, but we wanted the rematch clause. And Canelo said no deal. In addition to that, he also said it was already agreed unification title bout. We knew that. So, let me see. Oh, hold on. Yeah, it was always agreed that it was a title unification bout. No rematch for either fighter. But towards the end of negotiations, they wanted the rematch. And Plant said actually that they agreed, that's fine. Plant said he just wants to fight. So Plant says his side agreed to the deal 2 weeks ago. No arguments about money or any other stipulations besides the rematch clause. It was a one-way rematch clause.
Wow.
and it would only go in effect. He said it would only go in effect if Canelo lost. He also said that the ring stipulation, Canelo wanted a 22 by 22 foot ring instead of the standard 20 by 20.
Canelo wanted the bigger ring.
And then, yes, Canelo wanted the bigger ring.
That's surprising.
And then he says third request, if Caleb Plant gets injured or sick, then they have to give him Canelo a late replacement for the same amount of guaranteed money. But if Canelo gets sick or injured, they have to wait.
That's them damn shenanigans. I'm just telling you, like, I knew that it had to be something, but also they were gonna have to play ball with, they were gonna have to play ball with Premier Boxing and Heyman, whereas Canelo's last fights have been with DAZN. That contract just ended with DAZN, to where he's a free agent to fight on whatever network he wants to, as of the end of the Billy Joe Saunders fight. So I think there's a little bit of play there where, who knows what DAZN is now offering Canelo not to get on the PBC train. And so I think these are all tactics to like stall for a little bit more time. And now we're discussing the fact that he could try to move up to fight Bivol. Yes, skipping over Beterbiev and not dealing with Caleb Plant altogether. But it would then be on DAZN. So it's some other play going on behind the scenes, I feel, besides the fact that they just didn't like the contract points. I feel like it's some other shenanigans going on between the two. What is it James likes to call them? Cartels.
Alphabet cartels, yeah.
Yes.
Seems like
Canelo's a great fighter, okay? He is, and you guys know how I feel about him. Great fighter, but this kind of stuff gets in the way of you looking like a great fighter. One, you've already tried to shaft Caleb Plant already. You look like you're scared because you already tried to give him the short, you get a little bit of training camp, maybe, 2 to 4 weeks. We'll give you late notice. And they tried it more than once. And now it's always, I'm going to get every contact stipulation I can in here. Nothing in the way of Plant, except maybe, a little bit of money sprinkled down. But nothing, I bet, other than that, gets Canelo, or gets Plant's way. One, if I was Plant, I would want VADA testing, and done early on. Like, now, until the fight. But you ain't going to get that. And I damn sure would not want it in Las Vegas. Hell, I don't want it in fucking Nevada. Somewhere neutral, if there even is a place that's neutral for Canelo.
Yeah, I don't think there is a place that will be neutral for him. But at the same time, you're talking about $40 million that he's been offered, plus Mexican television royalty points.
He sounds scared.
At what point, what is it that's stopping you from wanting this fight?
He sounds scared. I think it's a bad style matchup for Canelo. Come on, what, $40 million, your highest guaranteed. Okay. Do you not think if you happen to get a rematch that is still not going to be worth about that same amount? If Canelo gets upset, that's probably just going to make it even worth more money. So why not take the rematch clause unless you're afraid of taking that L?
And I'm like, why you want a one-sided rematch clause? Shouldn't it be equal? Like, you're worried about if you don't win that you want another fight. But if you do win, you don't want to have to face Caleb Plant again. Mm-hmm. So it's like, make it make sense. Like, come on. And then he wonders why certain people are not on his bandwagon anymore. Like, a lot of Canelo's fans are jumping ship for real. In recent, I would say about in the last 6 months, they've started, being to the point where they're not into what Canelo is selling, especially after that Yildirim fight. So we have to look at it like, Canelo, you are overplaying your hand. And the only way you're not overplaying your hand is if another organization is offering you around $40 million for you to fight nobody.
Right. I really don't get it, guys. I know that title is worth money, but I honestly didn't even think he was going to get that kind of money for Caleb Plant. I like Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant's an amazing fighter, but he does not have a huge fan base to be warranted no $40 million. The $40 million is coming from the undisputed title that he's going to be receiving after the fight, should he win.
I just think that it's more about the fact that he's the toughest competition that Canelo will have seen in a long time.
That's also true. And it's a varying style matchup that he has kind of suffered with. The slickness Canelo does not usually do well with. Now, people are going to bring up BJ Saunders. Please shut the hell up. BJ did not fight slick in that fight whatsoever. That was just an embarrassment. But guys, this may open the door for a Golovkin 3. I like it, and I don't at the same time. I kind of wish the Golovkin fight happened earlier. I think it's too far gone now. It's been a while since I've seen Golovkin in the ring, but he's still holding up, but he's degrading, and you can visually see it. He has degraded. This is not a prime Golovkin anymore. And people can be like, you're making excuses for Golovkin already. No, I'm not. I'm just saying we all know that he has gone a little bit downhill. Now, Sakura, you did have kind of like a runner-up tweet of the week that said, from Aquasolity, what was Prime Golovkin's biggest weakness? On paper, it doesn't get close to being perfect, really. Let's take a stab at it. What is Prime Golovkin's biggest weakness?
Damn, sometimes I guess he could be more aggressive than he should be against, a heavy puncher like a Canelo. I mean, he was right there in his face most of all 24 rounds that they were together. I mean, if he was doing more boxing in those particular fights, he probably still wouldn't have got the decision, I don't think, but he wouldn't have took so much damage, taking shots that he didn't have to take. But by the fact that he likes to be right there in your face and being aggressive, even against the Canelo, he took some punches that he didn't need to take. Yeah. So I think that is and I think that is also why we see the deterioration a little bit now. Is because of, those punches that he's taking in those fights. But where the hell is Triple G? It's a bad sign when you don't even hear him saying, hey, well, I'll still fight your ass, He's not even saying that anymore because he know he's tired.
Yeah, I mean, I think now it's a big money fight, or he didn't kind of want to do it, so he's trying to hold out for some of the big guys. And I agree with you. I think a lot of it is, defensively, maybe his biggest weakness. But he is defensively strong. But you're right. I mean, there's times where he would allow himself to get hit to land his own punches. And, sometimes it was also too aggressive, or at least not smart aggression. It would be getting too wild when he gets, excited, as you could tell in the Canelo fights before. Rob, what would you say his biggest weakness is?
It is black and white, and it's out there. And he said it all along. When he feels pressure from a fighter coming on, he turns on the jets and is really aggressive because he's trying to knock the guy out. And I believe he does it because he knows his defense is his weakest link. It's in the defense. And with that being said, because the reason why he didn't beat Canelo is because he was too cautious. Because of those defensive flaws. He didn't want to get hit, and he didn't want to be aggressive because he knew that would sustain him to a punch landed by Canelo that could hurt him. So, because of the fact that he believes truly in himself that he can't necessarily warrior it out with a guy like Canelo, and he can't defensively defend himself enough to beat a guy like Canelo, that's his biggest flaw, is his defense, and he's not willing to trade and stand in there and give that true warrior spirit like a true Mexican fighter would when he gets into that situation.
I don't know, man. I've seen Golovkin take some harsh beatings. I gotta completely disagree. I mean,
he never took a beating.
Never been rocked. He has been big punches landed against him in the Canelo fights. I saw Canelo hit him with everything that man had. I mean, he just came back, everything he had, all at once, and Canelo said, "That all you got, man?" Golovkin just took it on the chin. No problem at all.
That being said, those two fights, both fights were good, but they weren't great. Nobody's going to sit here and remember those fights as a great fight in history.
I think you're wrong again.
I think you're wrong on that.
We going to come back to that.
Kangaroo. I can sit here right now tonight and watch Triple G, them two fights again. I mean, because they're action packed.
I've rewatched them several times.
Watching nothing. Like
the first one, the first one they were both apprehensive, and the second one Triple G was too apprehensive. Canelo was on his offense that night.
All right, guys, we're gonna start to wrap it up, and we ain't done just yet. Let's see. Kangaroo Jack said, "Would the panel agree nobody beats Tyson Fury if they try to outbox him?" That's rough.
Say that again. Would the panel agree? What?
Nobody beats Tyson Fury if they try to outbox him.
We'll go one by one, Lucas. What's your thoughts?
You know, there's other fighters out there that may have the ability to outbox him, but it's a short list. We're gonna see how Usyk does against Joshua, but as far as like a pure boxer in the heavyweight division, I think he's one of the ones that would be able to pull that off. Usyk is amazing, but to be able to outbox him for 12 rounds without, something big landing from Fury, I don't know. We are going to answer that question really quickly with Joshua. Can Joshua outbox Fury? No. Can Wilder? That's already been proven, no. So,
I mean, the problem is he's just not a damn heavyweight. He's not the heavyweight of today anyway.
Talking about Usyk?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with, I would be cautious to even say Usyk as a welterweight that could possibly outbox him, because I just don't consider him a heavyweight. Mm-hmm. I just can't. And if we're going to say that, then we got to bring up bridgerweights. No, let me stop.
Oh, man. Has there been a bridgerweight fight yet?
Your favorite thing, I think they have had one fight. But, I mean, my thing is that, yes, I think there's somebody out there that possibly does have the same skill level as Fury, and that would be Ortiz, a Cuban pedigree Ortiz, King Kong, which we're never going to see that fight. So we can't even get an AJ versus King Kong fight.
But
we're on the same staple. So
do you think Ortiz could outbox Fury?
It's a possibility, yeah. Because Fury had wait a minute. I should say, are we talking about prior Sugar Hill and Crunk Jim, or?
I think we're just talking about now. That's all. Just now.
Okay, because I have to say, I do believe, yes, that he would be able to, because of the fact that Fury in the past, what he's like to do in his boxing is do a lot of feigning and jerking and moving around very well. Best moving around and ring generalship out of all the heavyweights, for sure. But what we don't see him do is some of the things that we see someone like a King Kong do, which is, really be good at setting you up for a big shot and actually getting a lot of, volume punches in. Only until the Wilder Fury 2 did we see Fury actually landing a multitude of fights. Because if you remember, even when he fought Klitschko, you're talking about one round where there was some action, which was like the 10th round. Other than that, no real punches were landed. So in that respect, I have to give the edge to a King Kong, because there's going to be more, there's just going to be more activity, punches being thrown. But other than that, I can't think of anybody in that division that I would say outboxes Fury.
I think, overall, I would agree. I think Ortiz and Fury are pretty equal as far as boxing ability is concerned. But Fury, at least when it comes down to it, seemed to have the better game plan if you're comparing both fighters when they fought Wilder. Every time that big hook was coming from Wilder, he was slipping it. He knew exactly when that punch was coming, whereas Ortiz, not so much. That's really the only fight that you can really compare those two. And, that's not really fair, just that one fight. But it's a good question. Good question. Thank you, Kangaroo Jack, for that. Rob?
To answer your question, Kangaroo Jack, no. Nobody can outbox Fury in the heavyweight division. He's proven that.
Can we at least wait to see how Usyk does?
He's not big enough, and you know what Fury will do to him.
You're probably
Fury
right.
will. It'll be Cunningham. It'll be Cunningham versus Fury all over again.
You're probably right. All right, guys, we got Adrian Granados taking on Conor Benn, or vice versa, if you want to say it that way.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that fight.
Very action-packed fight that's kind of flowing on the radar. I'm glad it's here, and it's on my son's birthday. So I'm super excited for this fight. I'll already have a packed house, so they can just stay and watch the fight. Guys, is Conor Benn the real deal, and will we find this out against Granados?
Well, one thing's for sure, you're gonna find it out with Granados. He makes you fight. Every time he steps in the ring, he has no fear. He fights like he has no fear. But not only that, he fights like he has the confidence to beat anybody he steps in the ring with. Conor Benn is a little bit flamboyant. To be honest, I think that's tailor-made for a guy like Granados because he's gonna make it ugly. He's gonna make it rough. You come in there flaunting your talent, thinking you're the big shot, thinking you're one of the next big guys to step in there, you're gonna get a shot of humble pie in the mouth. Granados don't play. I think it's a perfect matchup for Ben to prove if he's at where he's at as far as his potential and his status. Because Granados is gonna test him. He's gonna test that chin. He's going to test that heart. He's in there for the long haul. It's an interesting matchup.
It definitely is. And, you said it really well. It's a good measuring stick where Conor Benn is and whether he's going to rise to the occasion or not. One thing's for sure, Granados is no Samuel Vargas. I mean, it's a completely different fight here, and he's going to have Granados on him for 12 rounds. Can he last through that kind of pressure? He hasn't had to face it yet. He has not had to face anything like that. So how he answers, I'm looking forward to seeing it, the answer. But Sakura?
Yeah, Conor Benn is saying that he wanted to come to America, and he wants to make a splash here in the States. This is a great way to start that off by fighting a crafty veteran fighter like a Granados. I think he will weather the storm, and I do feel that he's going to be able to come through this fight because every fight that I've seen him in, he seems to be improving drastically with each fight, showing more nuances as a boxer. So if you want to get known in the States, this is a perfect way to do it. You got to fight the Mexicans. And you got to fight it to win it. So, I mean, this would be a great situation. Before, I was pissed because he was talking about coming to the States and this and that. And then you're calling out somebody that's hardly known from your country. It's like you're not going to cross over that way. You got to have some big boys that you're fighting from across the pond here in the States. So this would be a prime person to try to get through. But I do think it's going to be action fight, and he's going to test him for sure. I mean, Granados is the type that he like Rod was saying, he's going to test you. Like, he's going to take you there. And you're not been there before, he's going to say, hey, welcome to the big boys, because here it is. So I look forward to seeing it.
All right, let's do some predictions. Okay, Rob, I got to hear you first, buddy.
I mean, look, this is probably the biggest fight in Granados' career at this point. Because if he wants to continue to even get these type of fights, he has to win this fight. He has to. Again, I think Conor Benn is going to come in flamboyant. He's going to come in overly confident. And if he does, Granados is going to teach him a lesson in there. It's going to be a gritty fight. But I think Conor will be tested, and I think he will be able to grit it out. I think he'll be able to fight fire with fire, so to speak, against Granados, and I think he edges this one out. It could be a controversial victory, though. Even though he doesn't, he's coming to the States for the first time. I can't even say controversial because it's his coming out party in the United States, and these judges and everything already know Granados. I think he does enough. I think he wins the fight by decision.
This one's not going to be in the States, guys.
See, Shakura, you had me thinking the whole time it was going to be in the States. Yeah, absolutely.
I thought it was going to be in the States, but this is not the first time that Conor Ben has fought in the States. He's fought in New York before, but this is the first time that he would be fighting here and being more of an established name. Well, now he's not. I didn't know he wasn't fighting here, but he's still fighting an American fighter who has a name that we're going to be like looking out for.
Well,
so
we are.
Still a way to test out, to get more exposure for the States when you fight Granados.
But I take that back.
But
he's Conor Ben is gonna lose the fight, but win on a controversial decision. Okay.
Oh Lord.
Completely agree with what he's saying. I mean, unfortunately, this is in Granados. I mean, this is how it is. Granados outworks people, and he's never rewarded for it. And that's what you can expect in this fight. I honestly think he's going to outwork him. And you can expect Conor Ben to, steal some of the last rounds. And with the showboating and the flamboyantness that Rob is saying, for the most part, I surprisingly agree with everything pretty much Rob said. I fully expect that. Yeah, he's just going to steal the fight from him. And of course, people are going to say it's, a screw job over in the UK, and there's never going to be a rematch because
don't even talk about it.
Because Granados is not going to get a rematch. We know that. So
it just made me flash back to last weekend with another bad decision.
Yeah.
On the show box with the next generation fighters, Boca Chica. Totally lost that fight, guys. Totally lost. And they had one judge had it like where Boca Chica was winning 2 rounds up. And it just was like, I was just like, you gotta be kidding me, man. But okay, to finish up the Granada situation, do we all remember Amir Ahmad? That was supposed to be
Amir Ahmad, yeah.
And he shut it down. Granada shut it down.
Stop that.
Yes. And then Broner could not get the W against Granados. So we have to remember that that's that type of fighter. He's that type of fighter. But as far as these bad decisions go, guys, I don't know if you guys can somehow find that fight, but I would just love if you didn't get to see it this past week on Showbox. It was their 20th anniversary, by the way, for the next generation. And they had some really great clips of different prospects that went on to be world champions, like Timothy Bradley, Zab Judah. Like, they showed them in the beginning of their careers, along with Andre Ward. So it was a night where you got to, like, kind of go back and see just what type of prospects you've actually been able to see on that show before they became the world champions that they got to be. So it's definitely worth the look if you can find it on Showbox or Showtime On Demand. But damn it, man, they need to stop with these judges that getting it completely wrong. And it was a draw. They were celebrating the draw because they knew that they were not winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of that in boxing. Let's just avoid Texas right now and Nevada, okay? Can we do that? Hopefully the UK gets it right. I'm waiting and willing to open. Hopefully, this is judged and scored correctly. But I do have my...
your suspicions, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
No doubts.
All right. All right, Rob, let's go to any rapid-fire topics and wrap it up for the night.
Yeah, just a couple topics, that we haven't talked on that we can do a rapid-fire about here real quick. One thing I wanted to touch on was the Olympics. Of course, the Olympics going on right now. Boxing is back. Um, First thing that I noticed though, guys, and maybe it's just been a long time since I watched boxing in the Olympics, but I'm seeing guys without headgear out there. I'm not seeing the headgear on these fights. Some of these fights.
That was announced last Olympics, that they would not be doing that. And they also like approved pro fighters. Like,
Yeah,
you can be a professional fighter and fight now. It is kind of weird. I don't necessarily agree with the no headgear as far as the Olympics are concerned. I mean, these are usually supposed to be still amateurs. Of course, me as an action fighter guy, I do want to see no headgear, but I don't think that's very responsible. You know, we got to keep these kids safe. This is still boxing's future, and I mean, just there's so many deaths in boxing, and so many comas, and so much brain damage going on. Let's not do that. That's the way I feel about it.
Now that being.
Oh no, that hair gear was just like, it was so awful, and you couldn't tell. I mean, it was like they were just like calling a knockdown, just like, you know, without having any real symptoms of a knockdown. Like, it was just so bad to watch. Like,
it is.
I can't with that. I can't. It just didn't make any sense. This is boxing. I mean, if you want to be in boxing, headgear, that this was not going to work. And it also made it where the sport was minimalized when it came to the Olympics, to the point where now it's not even seen on mainstream hours. So it's like we got to build this back up some, because they really took a hit for boxing with that headgear move.
Well,
so
I mean,
I'm not for it.
You're for no headgear?
Yeah, I'm not for bringing the headgear back.
Me neither. I mean, I think it's more entertaining that I don't see the headgear out there. I was really excited to see that. That being said, though, did y'all see, and this has made headlines, that there was a boxer from Morocco who bit his opponent's ear, Mike Tyson style?
No, I didn't see that.
And the referee didn't catch it. Now, granted, the fighter lost on points, which thank God he did, but he bit a guy in the ear in the ring and didn't get disqualified.
Oh, man. See, the Olympics, I mean, it was supposed to be kind of the epitome of your amateur career. So that's why the headgear, you know, they fought with only headgear on, and then they're going to go now to no headgear. That's my only take on it.
Right. The headgear certainly could have helped prevent a bite of the ear, but...
Can you imagine Mike Tyson in the Olympics with no damn headgear? He'd be killing people.
Well,
True.
I mean, we're hoping that one day we do see someone, you know, come up that's like Mike Tyson-esque, you know, one day. Like, you want that, but I'm sure, like, as soon as he hits him, like, one time, they're going to be like, knockdown, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's it, you know, you're done. But we were getting a lot of bad decisions in the Olympics prior to this, so, you know,
those are probably still going to happen. And apparently, boxing judges are just blind. Go ahead, Rob.
So, in the next topic now, this is not official, so it's nothing signed off or anything like that as of yet, but it is comforting to hear that Ryan Garcia's comeback bout could come this fall, and it could be against Jojo Diaz. That is something we want to see. That is definitely something we want to see. They're both Mexican-American fighters. The fight would be in Staples Center in Los Angeles. So that could be a big draw if it's signed off on by both parties. I know Jojo Diaz wants it. Ryan Garcia, who knows? Yeah. He's been kind of ballsy, but I don't know if he'll take that fight.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't they both Golden Boy too?
They are.
I think that's a very makeable fight, and probably what's going to happen. I would almost bet on it. I think Ryan Garcia is the one that actually wants the Jojo Diaz fight and reached out to him first. But I could definitely see that fight happening.
I'm sorry, but make it make sense. Like, you didn't want to fight Fortuna, but now you were okay with fighting somebody that beat Fortuna and beat him decisively, by the way. I mean, I'm not understanding this move.
I honestly think he just wanted out of that fight. He did not want to fight at that current point in time. He just wanted out. And, I think he thought, what's the point? If I beat him, nobody's going to, say anything good about me. It's just going to be a sidestep, so to speak. It's not an elevation. It's a sidestep. With Jojo Diaz, now, you beat Jojo Diaz, it's another step up. And if you beat him decisively, you could be pay-per-view from now on. I don't know if this fight's going to be pay-per-view, but honestly, that's two named fighters that are, could be a pay-per-view fight after their last two outings.
Well, did JoJo get a title back, or is it like he's a #1 contender now or something? So it's like a unification
I could
bout?
have swore JoJo got his title back.
Because, my thing is it just didn't play well. Like, some people were saying that he dipped around Fortuna, like didn't want to deal with the awkwardness and, kind of bought into that theory that Fortuna it doesn't make anybody look good. So now you think that JoJo's gonna make you look better?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's just kind of suspect to me. Like what's
So,
the
JoJo doesn't have a title.
Yeah, JoJo was a former champion at 130. He moved up to 135 now, so
that's right.
he's without a title yet.
Well, they gave him some kind of medallion or something. Like,
girl, you looking at that? You looking at them damn medallions after the fights?
I'm looking at it. Was like I said, he was either a #1 contender status or something he was given to where it put him high in the rankings. So I didn't know which one it was, but I forgot that it was him actually moving up to 135 too. But yeah. He really did an outstanding job in that fight. That's one thing I want to make clear, that people have a lot to say about Joyce sleeping on the job and he didn't make weight and these things, but he really came out to win that fight against Fortuna. So people should know that when you're talking about Ryan Garcia versus Jojo Diaz, now you're talking about a real action-packed fight that could happen. It could be like really, really competitive.
I hope it happens.
Me too. So speaking of action-packed fights, speculations, all of that, we have to go to talk about the WBO orders the welterweight title fight for Terrence Crawford versus Sean Porter. So somehow, somewhere now, Terrence Crawford is saying that now they have to fight me. Now somebody over there in PBC that's a valid welterweight has to fight me. The purse bid, it'll go to a purse bid if it doesn't get agreed upon within 30 days. Guys, what do we think about this fight? It's finally a great opportunity, and what pitfalls could happen?
Honestly, I wish you brought this up earlier because I don't even have the time to touch on it like I'd like to. Because Terrence Crawford just... He gonna say that kind of stuff, but at the same time, he already said he wasn't really interested in fighting Porter like 2 years ago, right? So you can't say that you finally excited that somebody forces you to do this. It's been on your plate before. I honestly don't. I'm not. Just because the WB orders, that don't mean shit. We all know that. I still don't think none of these fights are gonna happen. And if it's not from Terrence Crawford's side, it's going to be from Leonard Ellerbe or somebody else because, as Sakura has reported for us before and got it directly from Leonard Ellerbe, Crawford ain't fighting nobody in the PBC.
Well, I don't want to say that because for me, Sean Porter is kind of at that point where it's like anybody else he fights is kind of like a recycled fight to me. And I feel like Sean Porter has always said that he's willing to fight Bud Crawford. The problem last time that the fight was being discussed was that Aram said that he didn't want to pay Sean Porter the kind of money that it would take for you to have a top 5 welterweight fighting Bud Crawford.
He doesn't have to, though.
But let me just finish. You know, that was the problem last time. So now that the WBO has stepped in and said, this is what's going down, now you're looking at it from, maybe Bob is looking at it from a different perspective. Because now if he doesn't negotiate and it just goes to purse bid, he is not in control of that situation at all. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the WBO, I mean, how far is he willing to go? How far is Aaron willing to go to not have this fight happen? So is it he's willing for Bud to give up the only leverage that he's been having all these years he's been at welterweight, which is the title? Is he willing to go farther to the point where he's like, well, give up the title? I don't think he is, guys. I don't think he wants to give up that leverage for Bud, the only welterweight he has over there with a legitimate title. So for that reason, I think this fight will happen. But other than that, if it was somebody else or a different division, Bob Arum might still not want to play ball. So we just have to see just how much Sean Porter really wants this fight, as well as how much Bud and Arum want to keep that WBO belt.
I don't know, man. Them belts get dropped like nobody's business anymore. We all know that you don't need that to make money. Well, go ahead.
So
Rob.
Just to put it in perspective in the article, it does say just because a fight is ordered by a sanctioning body, there's no guarantee it will happen. However, the matchup is natural because there is no chance that Crawford is willing to relinquish that belt. Let's face it, that's all he has. Not to mention the fact that it would definitely be equally difficult for Sean Porter to pass up another title fight. He has run out of options over there at PBC with title fights. That also being said, Bob Arum, it going to a purse bid takes Bob Arum out the equation. Because if he doesn't want to pay for it, we know somebody else will. I absolutely think that this fight will get made finally. To speak on what Lucas said, though, the quote from Crawford was, I've been begging for a real challenge for years. All the so-called elite welterweights have shown no interest in fighting me. Now one of them is finally being forced to.
Well,
as Lucas mentioned,
get on that.
Right, as Lucas mentioned, Porter was named for Crawford before, and Crawford sided with Bob Arum and didn't want to take it. So he's spinning a lot of game, Lucas. I think this one could not only get made, but it really could define Bud's career.
And back when Pacquiao was under Top Rank, he was offered Pacquiao, and he said, I'm not ready for that fight just yet.
And Thurman also volunteered and said, yeah, I want to fight. That's 3 welterweights. And he said nobody was willing to fight him.
Nobody wants to fight me. Yeah, except those 3. I mean, come on, Crawford. Look, and it's the same shit. Like, I like Canelo, but people know me. I give Canelo criticism. I love Bud Crawford, so I'm going to give the guy criticism, and this is it. I mean, come on. You have fights to be made. Stop blaming everybody else. Take control of your career. All right, this was a good show. Anything else before I close it up for the shop? Rob, Squirrel?
No, I'm all out.
I really hope it gets made because that will open up a whole new can of worms. And I think we're going to touch on this in the coming days for sure. I did have
something.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What the hell is going on with Conor McGregor? Why are you fussing and why are you doing digs against someone that just lost their father? Give me a damn break.
Man, I've constantly said from the beginning, before the Mayweather fight, like, everybody kept calling him, like, a really good guy. And I'm like, why is he a good person? He's not a good person. Like, I don't know why he was putting this face on for people or if people, like, bought into him. But I was like, this dude's an asshole. And slowly it kind of progressed to, yeah, he's an asshole. He's talking about somebody that just lost their dad, talking about their dad. And a bunch of other situations, too. He's talking about people's kids and all kinds of stuff. His wife's. You gotta
grandpa
leave that
fun.
stuff out of it. Like I'm all for trash talk and turning it into WWE and kind of making a story out of it, make it more entertaining. But you got to leave certain things out of it, and you can't be bringing in dead dads to it. I mean, you deserve to get your ass beat outside of the ring for that stuff. And I hope somebody meets you in the parking lot with a baseball bat or two.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. That was pretty low. That was a low bar he just said with that.
Let me just say, I'm no longer caring about Conor McGregor, anything he has to say until he wins a damn fight inside the octagon.
Look, we all know.
Win another fight there, then talk your trash. Other than that, he's not even a valid point right now.
We all know that Paulie Malignaggi whipped the shit out of him, and that's why we ain't never gonna see that sparring footage, the one that he supposedly got dropped in against Conor McGregor back before the Mayweather fight. We all know Malignaggi whipped that ass, but we ain't ever going to get to see him whip that ass. But I guarantee you he did. All right. I got to end it with that. It's been a great Tuesday. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget, every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and we will see you again on Tough Talk Tuesday next week. Have a good day.